What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I'm your host, Chris. It has been a little while since I've talked to you guys. It's we're already in the new year. We're in 2026, so happy New Year to you all. And I had to take some time to recover after getting some news that a close friend of mine had passed away. So I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to take on new guests and start a new season. And I couldn't think of a better guest to have to start season five. He is a youth empowerment speaker and an author. Please help me welcome Lawrence Harris. Lawrence, how you doing, man?
I am doing great.
Thank you so much for coming on and taking time out of your schedule, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
It's always a pleasure to be able to help other people and just show them what I've learned and they'll learn something from it too.
yeah. So before we dive into your story, we were kind of talking about something before we started recording. The age thing. Like I mentioned to you, massive respect to you for being 19 years old and using your platform to help so many others. And again, my hat's off to you and massive respect. Um, Talk about that a little bit and just like the misconception of, being young and being in this field.
Well, like you said, since I'm 19, a lot of people they had the assumption that, oh, he must have just started doing this one day. Like this year, last year, he must have just said, oh, I could become a public speaker. No, I've been doing this since I was 15. It all started because around the age of 12, my dad became abusive to me and my younger siblings. And being the oldest, I took on this very protector role at a time where I could really do nothing. So that led me down a spiral of just trying to figure out who am I and do I even matter?
Right.
Because I dedicated my entire life to making sure that they were safe and in the process forgot about me. And thankfully, my mom had the foresight to get me into therapy, but at that young of an age, there's a lot of things that you know that you feel, but you don't have the language to describe it. Now, prior to even that, I always was just different. So I didn't have many friends growing up, and the ones I did, they were they were acting like my friends, but talking about me behind my back. So I got to this point in my life where I just didn't, I felt like nothing. And I would go above and beyond to try and get the approval of everyone. I would bend over backwards in my relationships. I would just do anything I could to feel something. And thankfully, I eventually realized that, hey, I know I cannot be the only person in the planet who feels this way.
Right.
I know I can't be the only one. So I started making YouTube videos about just, hey, here's my life, here's what I'm going through. I don't know how to help anybody, but at least now you guys know that you're not the only one. Then from there, I started making more motivational content, in part to try and cheer myself up, because maybe if I say it enough times, I'll start feeling better. And that has spiraled into the last 4 years of going around talking at high schools and organizations, helping people to realize that you're not alone, even if you feel like you are.
And speaking from the perspective of being the older brother of two siblings as well, it's crazy that it's almost like it starts around the same age. I was 14 when my journey, just really came to fruition. And as you know from the podcast you listened to, that was around my first attempt. So being in that fight or flight and just trying to figure out, do I matter? How can I help other people? How can I protect my siblings from what's going on? And you don't know how to express it to anybody. And I had a therapist experience when I was 14, and when you're 14, you don't know anything about anything. You just know you want the pain to stop, and you don't know how to express it properly. I got mispaired with a therapist who didn't help me, and unfortunately, which will lead to a fortunately, uh, it took me 27 years to find a therapist that actually helped me. And hearing somebody of your, what experience you do have in life, it's incredible to hear that you wanted to start making those videos, not only to cheer yourself up, but to be like, hey, this is my story. You guys are not alone, regardless of what age you're currently at. You're not alone. And when you started turning it into motivational pieces, and now you're starting to go to high schools. Um, when you go to the high schools, tell me what the biggest piece of advice, or tell us rather, what the biggest piece of advice you offered to those kids who may be struggling with their identity and if they matter.
The biggest piece of advice I give to people like that is just because the world says something about you doesn't mean that has to be your truth. Because for me, I come from a family of, and this is nothing against them, this is just the reality of the situation. I come from a long family of people who either didn't graduate high school, ended up going to prison. Most of the men in my family did. So statistically, at this point in my life, I should have been arrested. And that's just the statistics of my own family and people around me and my city and so many things. I'm also autistic, so the vast majority of people with autism don't have jobs because of like sensory processing things, social skills. It's a whole bottle of things. And I could have listened to what the world says and what the statistics say, and oh, you're this percentage chance that this is going to happen to you. But I said, no, I'm going to create my own truth. And even in the face of people doubting me and thinking that I was delusional and that it wouldn't work, I said, hey, my truth is my truth. So if someone is in high school and they're thinking like, man, my entire family, they don't think that I should be a business owner because it's risky. What if this happened? They don't think I should be an electrician. They don't think I should become a doctor. They don't think I should do it. Well, you're the one who has to live your life.
Right. And, I feel like when you take advice from people who don't have to endure the consequences of whatever decisions you make, it makes you question the advice that you get from people. Because I know, for the longest time, my mom and I had bashed heads probably my entire life, even up until, we're at what age I'm at now. And one of the things that she said I would never amount to anything because I have no personality. She said, just all these hateful things, and it motivated me to the point of, you know, getting together with people like yourself or doctors and CEOs and whoever else will listen and just be like, listen, I want you to tell your story. I want you to tell me how it really made you feel going through those trials and tribulations because, like you said, just because the world tells you something doesn't mean it has to be your truth. There are so many of us, including myself, that statistics say that we shouldn't be here. I was almost just one of those statistics. I was almost, one of the males that took their life because depression got the best of me and society frowns on people like you and I talking about our problems. So, and you're at that age where I feel the stigma is really heavy on talking about mental health because you're young and you think that, it can't happen to me because I'm young and I haven't had the really bad things happen in life, which obviously I'm not talking directly about you, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get the point. And you just brought up something great too. So when people have that stigma of like, oh, every teenager when they're young, they go through that phase, but they don't pay attention to the fact that the vast majority of suicides are teenagers.
Right.
There's probably a correlation there. And because of that stigma, a lot of teenagers who come to me, they say things like, I just don't want people to think that I'm just being emotional or being irrational or anything. And I let them know that you know yourself. You know how you truly feel. Even if you don't know the words or the language or the terminology for it, you know that something in here doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not how it's supposed to feel. And there's people who genuinely care, but you get to this spot in your life where, especially for me, I got to the point where I started to believe that everyone and everything was like out to get me because that's how it always felt around my dad and around people who were associated with him. And there were things that I just could never figure out how to explain, but as I started going to therapy, I was able to figure out, like, oh, that's why I do this. One of them in particular was that whenever I would go to sleep, let's say I'm completely asleep
Hmm.
and someone turns the doorknob of my bed, not my bed, but my bedroom, I would like full body sprint towards the door. And I'm not even awake at this point. It was just like an automatic body reaction that would just happen. Or if I'm walking somewhere, I would always have this feeling that I'm constantly being watched by someone who disappears every time I look there.
Hmm.
And when you say that to people, they start to think you're crazy. But as I got older, I start to realize that if people are going to judge me, I would rather them judge me for just who I am rather than me trying to pretend and be somebody that I'm not.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of people can learn from, but especially young people. We're at that point where social media, you put something on there, hundreds of people, thousands of people, there's hate comments, there's people who are going to make videos insulting you. There's all these things. But there's also people who I've had people DM me things like, Lawrence, that video, I listened to it. Now I got out of that toxic relationship. Or you just saved my life. Or I was about to hurt myself and you just made me stop doing it.
Yeah.
These are the sorts of things that happen when we put it out there, but the world tries to shame us and say that, oh, men shouldn't talk about their mental health.
Hmm.
But then they're surprised when men are like out here committing these tragedies because had they talked about it, it wouldn't have happened. And they were talking about it. People just ignored it.
Yeah. And one of the friend that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, he unfortunately had taken his life, and he was uh, he was around my age, around 33, and when it happened, I remember one of the first things saying, like, talking about this as much as I do and as much as the community does. And sometimes it doesn't feel like enough because it falls on so many deaf ears. And judgment, I'm really glad you brought up the judgment piece because I feel I have been judged my entire life
Yeah.
by parents, by grandparents, by friends, and it doesn't become easier. It's like you said, you put yourself out there on social media and you get hate. I put my yearly summary on TikTok and, somebody would just said they just commented tubby on it. Like that's it. And it's one of those things where there's so many bots and there's so many disingenuous people and there's so much hate, and the only thing that you people like you and I can do is just encourage people to keep that conversation going, because when we stop talking about it, that's when these people are being taken away from us. And I think after my brother passed away in 21, I life is so fragile, right? It's incredibly hard. If it was easy, then, we would all be millionaires. We would all be rich and successful. But life is hard, but it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. If we stay silent, nothing changes. When we start speaking out, when we start talking about this, like you and I are doing, things start to change. There
Yeah.
was not to even get political or anything, but there was a bill that was presented for NAMI and like medical stuff to get cut, and they reversed. I don't know how much of it or what they reversed, but they reversed enough to where NAMI said that the things that were getting cut aren't getting cut anymore, and that's because people are talking, people are speaking out, you, and I just feel the most important thing in life is just to, Judgment is going to happen regardless of what stage of life we're in. It's just part of life and unfortunately part of being human. And we can only react to what we can control. If somebody down the street doesn't like you, that sucks. Whatever you did or whatever their perception of you isn't your reality. Your neighbor might absolutely love you. And it's just a matter of how you react to the things that you can control in life, and conversations like this we can control.
Yeah, and then there something you just brought up too that was so great is the fact that we can't control what other people think about us or say about us, but we can control how we react.
Hmm.
About maybe a year and a half ago, I had I had this video go viral on TikTok. And it was just me talking about how good my day was, and I was just walking down the street, just enjoying life. This guy makes a video hating on me and just saying a whole bunch of disrespectful things. And he goes through the effort of like taking my video, editing it into his video, transitioning it together, tagging me in the video, just all of these things. And at first I saw this and I was like kind of upset and mad about it. But then I thought the guy had to have been at least like, well, I went to his page and he was 42 and I was 18 at the time. And then I started thinking to myself about what is he going through or where is he mentally that would cause him to do that? Because that's a lot of effort. You can just scroll, you can just not do all of that. And I kind of felt sad, not at what he did, but I felt sad for him because I could just tell that he must have been going through something painful. And seeing me happy made him have to acknowledge that he didn't feel that way. And that helped me a lot because there will always be times when people have something bad to say about me and about what I do and just my me. And I understand now that because most people don't ever talk about what they go through, they tend to go around trying to, the phrase misery loves company. They're trying to bring you to where they are because they either don't know how to get where you are or they don't want to do the work that's needed to get there because people see me now and they're like, wow, this guy's so great and so happy and so good, but they don't see all the hard parts
Yeah.
that it took to
Yeah.
get here.
Right.
And
Right.
you have to go through those like moments where you sit down and you acknowledge your life and your childhood and you're like, oh, that happened.
Right.
Like that was real.
Yeah.
And you gotta look the monster in the face
Right.
and move forward. And it sounds easy when you just say, "Oh, you have to move forward past it," but it's not like you're moving forward like this. It's more like this.
Yeah. Right. And I'm glad that you took a step back with that guy who went after you, because we live in a really weird culture where people love to watch other people's downfall, regardless of where they stand, whether they're left, whether they're right, whether they're gay, straight, whatever. And it's so strange to watch people just gravitate towards negativity as hard as they do. And
Yeah.
obviously, I grew up with the birth of social media. Like I've watched it from MySpace to where it is now, and I've watched it progressively get worse because we're validating stupidity. We're
Oh,
we're
yes.
accepting we're uh we're accepting negative opinions, and we're just absorbing, 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 and it's so hard to ignore a lot of it. Like I remember on New Year's Day, we were watching the ball drop, and then I think the news came on right after, and like 5 minutes in, I'm like, dude, how do you guys watch this? This is so depressing. And I just left.
Mm.
I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I wish that we spent as much time lifting people up that we do shitting on people, because it's so disheartening to see people go after people on their way down, and people think that it can't happen to them. And I think that's the craziest part of what we do, is the people that are in content places, the people that are high up, don't think that bad things can happen to them until it does.
Oh yes. And what you just said right there, how about how people gravitate toward that negativity. Years ago, I actually unpublished it because I realized that this thing would be it would have been that it would have been one of those kind of books that would have gotten banned. I made an entire book where I thoroughly explained why people gravitate towards negativity and how throughout our entire life we're basically trained to do it
Yeah.
because it's profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And people buy more stuff.
Yep.
People who enjoy their life buy less stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They might buy stuff such as, food, shelter, homes, cars, jewelry because they want it and they can, but they don't feel the need to go, I need to look cool so that other people think I'm cool.
Right.
But people who genuinely enjoy their life and genuinely enjoy waking up and just being them, they don't really do that.
Right.
They're like, I mean, I'm gonna buy it because it's cool and I like it, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to buy a Lamborghini just because people think it's cool.
Yeah.
Because a Lamborghini is actually made by the same people who make Toyotas.
Right.
A Lamborghini is just a really fast Toyota. If you actually look at the ownership of the companies,
Yeah.
Lamborghini, Porsche, Ferrari, Toyota, Volkswagen are all owned by the same people. They
Right.
just make different bodies. And then too, there's the fact that at such a young age, you're brainwashed into it of like, just look at the shoe culture. Now, there are people who genuinely like love to collect shoes. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who I need to have the shiniest belt, the best clothes, the newest shoes, the I need the iPhone 18 the day it
Oh
comes
yeah.
out,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that the iPhone 10 does pretty much the same stuff unless you're a professional photographer.
Yeah.
If you're not a professional photographer, you don't need an iPhone 18.
Right.
And then you look at just so many things. And then with the negativity bias in the news, I stopped watching it years ago because of when have you heard anything good?
Right.
Like, when have you heard, hey, they saved a, a cat from a tree? They put out the fire. The, like, they prevented a bank robbery. Everything's great. No, you don't hear that.
Right.
You hear about all the tragedies and crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And a great example, I live in Philadelphia. Now, a few years ago, Philadelphia had like 400 murders in 1 year.
Right.
That's crazy. That's a lot of murders. It's a real tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you consider that Philadelphia has a population of 1.5 million, and then you consider that most of those murders were gang related, or someone got caught cheating on their wife or husband, so it was like a crime out of anger, or it was like an accidental misfire, or it was a cop shooting somebody, you realize
Mm-hmm.
that wait, when you say 300 murders, it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
and everyone's afraid.
Mm-hmm.
But when you just say, oh, 0.0000, however many 0%
Yeah.
were murdered in 1 year,
Right.
more people died of the flu in Philadelphia than they did of murder.
Yeah.
And that's not to minimize it, it's just to acknowledge the fact that when people get so focused on the negativity and the like craziness in the world, everyone becomes like
Everything
even
is enhanced.
yeah, like everyone becomes controlled. I
Mm-hmm.
tell people like, hey, everyone should read the book 1984 and just read it. Don't tell anyone you read it. And then just sit back and observe a day, just one day. And you'll be like, wait, they predicted this 80 years ago.
Right. Right. And so I'm glad that you brought up just the numbers thing because I think it was yesterday or maybe it was earlier this morning. I don't remember. Bam Margera, who I think you know who Bam Margera is, the Jackass
Um,
guy.
oh yeah, I've heard of them.
So he has been sober for the last year or so, and he posted a joke about Johnny Knoxville, and somebody attacked him because Bam has been recovering a recovering addict since his best friend died in a car crash, and somebody attacked him and said, oh, you should worry about your sobriety and something, something, something. And I went on this guy's profile and I saw that he had a quote by Mac Miller. And, of course, everyone knows who Mac Miller is. Everybody knows how he passed away. And I said, brother, I said, your favorite rapper was an addict and he OD'd. Like, what are we doing? Like,
And,
I understand, like, you want to idolize somebody, but if you're not willing to look at who you support while you're attacking somebody, it's like, brother, it's the
yeah,
same thing.
and that too is how a lot of times people want to look good in front of other people, but they don't want to have
Always.
to acknowledge themselves.
Hmm.
Like this isn't about religion, but the entire reason why Jesus got crucified was because he called out people for what they were actually doing.
Hmm.
One of them was, I can't remember exactly how it went, but he was basically calling out the government at the time and saying that, hey, you guys wear the nicest, most fancy robes and you live on these literal high horses. That's, where the whole phrase comes from. And you say that you're so great and so wonderful, but when I was in prison, why didn't any of you write me a letter? When
Right.
I was starving, none of you gave me bread. When
Hmm.
I was thirsty, none of you gave me water. And they started making all these excuses to say that I'm not like that. No, see, it was different, but people often want to ignore the reality of what they're doing. And when it comes to helping people with their mental health, one of the big things is like you don't have to shame yourself, you don't have to tear yourself down. You just have to look at it and say, "Hey, I am doing what I'm doing.
Right.
What I've done has led me to this point. Now, if I keep doing what I'm doing, where is that going to lead me?
Hmm.
Is it leading me to where I want to go? Or is it leading me somewhere I don't want to?
Right.
And what do I need to do? What decision do I need to make? What do I need to haul myself out on in order to be on the track that is beneficial?
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to ask about, just the work that you do and just kind of throw this in there before I ask the question. Burnout is a very real thing, right? We put so much of ourselves into the community, into the things we love and are passionate about. And we get to that point of, maybe I need a break. Maybe this is just too much right now. I need to take a step back. How do you stay motivated when the work gets tough or repetitive?
Well, it's funny you say that because earlier today it actually got really repetitive. I was
Mhm.
making a bunch of emails and I was just like drafting emails over and over and over for like 3 hours straight. And one of the things that helped me in those sort of moments is on a simple note, I just find a way to make it entertaining. Like I might listen to some music while I do it. I have a work playlist. But on a deeper note, when there's times of people leaving hate comments and people just being disrespectful, I just remind myself of all the good ones. I remind myself of, hey, I can wake up in the morning and enjoy seeing the sunrise. It's these very simple things that I can look back on my life and go, yeah, that person who commented or left a message, they don't like me. But if 13-year-old Lawrence met 19-year-old Lawrence, I would be like a superhero to him.
I
And
love
just
that.
thinking about that image makes me feel, more motivated to do it because
Yeah.
motivation is kind of like wanting to do the thing you want to do.
Right.
Whereas having that deeper purpose, that deeper reason, it makes you want to keep going.
Hmm.
But I also, do acknowledge that as much as I love what I do, I can't work 24/7. It's just,
Yeah.
I can't do that. So I will have times when I might go fishing and just do nothing. I'll just be out fishing at a lake, or I might go for a walk, or read a book, or journal, or go to the gym. And that allowed me to recharge and clear my mind.
Right. And it's so important to keep your brain busy. And when you hit that stage of burnout and you have to unplug from everything, it's so great to have those coping mechanisms that, allows you to just kind of decompress, like having music or having journals or being out with nature. My thing has always been sunsets. You know, my friend that passed away in 2020 during the pandemic, that really weird time where we couldn't see our loved ones after they passed away. And I remember the week after she passed away, I isolated myself in the house. I'm not even kidding you when I tell you this, at least a week. I didn't leave the house not once. And it ate me alive. I did not want to go back to work. I didn't want to do anything. And then when that week finally came, like, all right, it's been a week. I need to go outside. And her and I's thing was sunsets. We'd always send sunset pictures to each other and stuff. And we had a plan to go on her brother's boat and catch a sunset together. And she was very sick and she went in for pre-op and she passed away on the table before they can operate on her. And when I went to go see that first sunset after she passed away, the image of the sunset was like a phoenix rising from the flames. And when I tell you that that is the most powerful version of symbolism I think I have ever seen, I knew from then and there that guardian angels were a real thing.
Oh, yes.
And when you can find something that is that powerful in your heart to cling on to when you're not doing what we're doing, when we're not pouring ourselves out to others. It's a whole new level of clarity that this is why I do what I do. This is why I love doing what I do because we can encourage each other to, hey, it's okay to take a break. It took me a long time to say it's okay to take a break. I hate taking breaks.
Same. It's and that's deep because when you start thinking about just even just a sunset, no two sunsets are ever exactly the same.
Right, right.
And when I was younger, something I used to do all the time is I would look at the moon and I would just think to myself about how almost every single other human ever has looked up at that rock and wondered, what is that? And you start to think like that our problems can be really heavy and really burdensome. But when you zoom out and look at it on like this giant cosmic perspective, you're like, okay, it's a blip.
Right.
Like our lives don't even register in the timeline of the universe. But that doesn't mean that you're just like this little drop in the ocean. It means that you're the ocean inside of a drop. There was
Yeah.
this philosopher who said that. His name was like Rumi. He was from India. And then, for me during COVID, that was one of the most pivotal times ever because not only was I dealing with my mental health issues, but the year prior, no, it was a few months prior to the shutdown, my dad had actually kicked me out the house in front of a church. And we were like, there was this whole huge argument and everything was just chaotic. And that was the last time I ever saw him in person. Then COVID happens and I'm, in the house. My siblings, because of like court orders and stuff, he just one day signed over his rights. No one asked him to, he just did, which was odd, but I guess in a weird way, thank you to him for doing that. So now me and all my siblings were safe at my mom's house. COVID happens and we are all trying to manage our own mental health while locked inside of a house with each other. And all of us have like different things going on. And I started thinking a lot about just how do I find meaning in the regular day? Because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't see anyone.
Mhm.
It was just me and the four walls of my bedroom for about a year or two. And one of the things that got me through that time was journaling. I would just write a lot. And one thing that happened for me was just realize that the simple act of being able to write is it's something to be thankful for because you're able to have a functioning brain, you're able to see, you're able to read, you're able to move your hands, you're able to look back on your life and see how much you've grown. And that was just a it was one of the hardest yet also best times of my life. And
Yeah.
the image of a phoenix rising from the flames made me think about that because even in our most darkest, painful, burning fire moments, when you rise from it, you're stronger.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily override the pain, but it makes you realize that, hey, what I went through led me to where I am.
Yep.
And where I am, I like it here.
Hmm.
So as painful as it was, it had to happen.
Yeah. So fast forward from, when you endured the stuff with your father and moved with your mom, do you have any sort of relationship with your dad at all? Like you don't have anything?
Like it's
Good. Good.
complete cold turkey. Because there were the few years where I was thinking to myself, like, the phrase that people can change, people can get better. Technically possible if they decide to,
Right.
and if they put in the work to. Because anyone can say, and this is what happened. He would often say things like, "Oh, I've changed, I've grown, I've become better." And prior to him kicking me out, I would like go there and try to see like maybe he was going through something, and in your 12-year-old mind, you want to see your parents as your parents,
Yeah.
even if it's blatantly obvious that they're not good for you.
Hmm.
So then, things be good for like a week and then they would go straight south again. So when he kicked me out and then I would randomly get like a once or twice a year text message from him trying to get back in my life, I, realized that hey, it's not even it's not even worth having the possibility of any communication happening.
Yeah.
Because a simple "how have you been?" that can go south very fast.
Oh yeah.
A simple the last time he tried to talk to me was actually a few days after it was a few days before my high school graduation.
Hmm.
And I guess the school naturally emailed them because they have all the parents on like email list and it just
Sure.
automatically sent out. So he was saying like this whole, you worked so hard to get here and just this crazy generic message. And I looked at it, and at this point in my life, I had developed so much that I was able to, immediately the alarm bell went off and dissected every single line of that. And I sent him a response that was something along the lines of, "I forgive you for what you did not know, but I will never forget. And I have no intention of ever having you back in my life. May God take care of you, and I wish you the best, but I will not be there." And that was one of those moments that really, looking back on it, I'm proud of myself for how I handled that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I could have easily said that, I could have easily just went south very fast, got super disrespectful, and I would have been completely justified because everything I would have said would have been the truth.
Yeah.
But instead, I simply let it be known that I want you to eat, just not at my table.
Hmm.
No, I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I simply want your life to be your life. Whatever happens to you, happens to you. But I have no involvement in that. I have no ill will towards you, but I have no goodwill towards you. I have no will towards you. And that was really big for me
Yeah.
because as much as it as it can weigh down on me at times, I understood that it taught me what I didn't want to be. And when I couldn't figure out, well, who I wanted to be, I at least knew what I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So I just reverse engineered it. I don't want to be that, so I want to be this.
Hmm. First of all, I just want to say mad respect to you for being able to say what you said to your father after all that he did. And man, you handled that in a way I never in a million years thought was possible, because I know it's easier to just cut somebody off and just cut communications off, right? It's so easy to do that. But to be able to say that you don't wish them ill and you wish them the best, and you just want no part of it. That's gigantic, man. And props to you for being able to put aside all that pain just for a moment to basically brush him out of your life. Just put him in the dustbin and put him out to pasture. That's incredible, coming from somebody who had not only physically abusive mom, but a very narcissistic mom. And the biggest struggle for me has always been kind of what you were saying, how it weighs down on you heavy sometimes, right? And I think the longest I ever went not talking to her was maybe a year and a half. And I called her on her 50th birthday, and I said, I just wanted to wish you a happy 50th. You deserve that at least. And I didn't talk to her any further than that, until like a couple of months later. And one thing that I've always made a point to say to my therapist is like, I always have my guard up with my mom. I
Oh
can't
yeah,
give her an inch because the second you open that door, it's just the floodgates open, right?
right.
And recently, uh, she decided to try and weaponize my podcast when I was telling my story. And she attacked
Mm.
my little brother too.
Oh
And
my gosh.
what she said to my little brother was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's what's funny, right? All the things that she said and done to me, and it took what she said to my brother for me to just say, I want nothing to do with you.
I think a big part of that was, and this is part of mine too, is that when it is to someone that we love, we see it a lot different. Like
Yeah,
when we see the people that we love being hurt, it does something in us.
yeah,
And that's also why none of my siblings have a relationship with them.
yeah.
Even if one of them were to say that they wanted to, and this has happened before, they would say, I want to give them a chance and this and this and this and that. And I would explain, like, all right, so I understand that you may love someone, that you may care about someone, but let's look at how this person treats you. And then ask yourself, does it make sense to reopen that door? And eventually they would understand, like, no, it doesn't. Because, like you said, you give someone an inch, they will take miles. And a lot of times, I know that you weren't doing it, but a lot of people, they throw around the word, oh, this person's a narcissist. Most people who say that they do not know what a real narcissist is.
Amen.
Like you don't know what that is.
Amen, brother. Oh my God.
They throw around these buzzwords like, oh, they were gaslighting me, they were doing this, they were doing that. But if you really knew what it was,
Oh man.
you would know that that's not what they were doing.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
I
Because
remember. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
let's just say like because what I realized was like people who are narcissists deep down, they actually hate themselves
Yeah.
because you have to think of it this way. People who try to make other people feel less of themselves and feel small, those are people who are trying to get power. Why? Because they feel powerless. So they prey upon people who aren't able to fight back, such as children, elderly, people who just don't have the resources or capacity to defend themselves. And by keeping that person small, it makes this person feel bigger in their head.
Hmm.
And when my dad kicked me out, it was because I figured that out. And
Hmm.
I realized that, wait, I might not be able, and keep in mind, I was 13 at this time. So I was a lot less, I would say the word, I was a lot less
Equipped.
empathetic. I would say
Okay.
that. I was less empathetic
Yeah.
because I got to a point where now you're hurting my younger siblings. Now I actually wish you the worst.
Yeah.
So I realized that, okay, I cannot physically, fight back, but I can mentally destroy this man.
Hmm.
Like I can tear him apart mentally. So I did that.
Yeah.
And within minutes, his whole life and mind just crumbled.
Yeah.
because I made it apparently obvious to him that the reason you're doing this is because your life sucks. And I just went down a list of like, because of this. And it wasn't the kind of thing where like, oh, you're just, how people will insult you and they make stuff up. No, I was using like, oh, factual information. Like, oh, this is what your bank account is. This is what your living situation, your life. This is your relationships. This is that. You can't argue with it. These are truths. And he kicked me out that same day because now he had to acknowledge like how powerless he truly was.
Yeah.
And when I was about 9 years old, I was
Mhm.
actually in the like city's newspaper because I coded a video game. And I told him about it. And I came home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was in the newspaper and I was so excited and happy. And it took about 4 days until one of his friends told him about it. And then he said, good job. But only because other people said how good I was. So he wanted to try and say, like, oh, that's my son.
Hmm.
Which again is why I completely like blocked him and everything when I got older, because I realized that when I was 17, I did not know how good my life would be now and how good it would turn out. But I knew I'm going big places. And when that happens, here he's gonna try and come and try and give us a whole spiel. So let's just completely block him before that can even get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to go back to the words being thrown around, the buzzwords really quick.
Well, yeah.
Uh, I remember when I first started therapy and I started learning what these words were. I started learning what a narcissist was. I knew of the word and I kind of had an idea what it was, but I wasn't like 100% sure what the definition was. And then I started hearing gaslighting, and then I started hearing love bombing. Those three freaking words,
Oh yeah.
brother. When I tell you, when I first heard what a narcissist was. I think I was about, I want to say 26, I think is when I understood what the definition was. Fast forward to like 30 years old, and I saw somebody post on Twitter about a narcissist, and it was such a dumbass post. And I said, bro, do you even know what a narcissist is? Have you lived with a narcissist? I'm like, brother, respectfully, stop throwing words around you don't know the definition of. Because everything that you're saying in this post, you sound like a dumbass. Like,
Yeah.
respectfully. Like, look up the definition. This is not what that is. But the reason I mention that is I feel we're, again, in the culture of using words and we're devaluing everything. The word
Mm.
abuse is thrown around so much, and it has been since I was a kid. People don't know what abuse is, and I'm not saying people need to find out what abuse is. I'm not saying that at all. But when you're saying you were disciplined versus abused, you and I know what abuse looks like from every level. Some of these people don't know what abuse is. It's like, oh, well, we disagreed on something, so he yelled at me, so he emotionally abused me. What? I was there. That's not what happened. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I wish people would stop devaluing words that they just keep spewing out their mouth.
Oh yeah. And see that too. It leaves people who are like actual victims of real serious things to not get the help that they need, because it's like the boy who cried wolf.
Hmm.
Imagine you have a bunch of people crying wolf, and then the person who like actually saw the wolf, they don't get the attention or they don't get the support because oh, everyone's talking about the wolf and they're all lying, so we're going to assume that you're lying too.
Right.
And that's why we have not one of the best examples to see this is in like those cases where someone has like a false rape claim
Yes.
and they say like, oh, this person did this thing, and then like weeks or months or years later, it's proven that oh no, they lied, and then there's another person who lied, and then there's another person who lied, and then there's cases where like, they're just saying that oh, you should believe everyone, but if we believe everyone, and we see a lot of people lying, now we don't know who to believe.
Right.
And that's a really like sticky situation because I know people who were like actual victims of things like this. And they weren't able to get the help and support because the court system is like, can we prove that this happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, can we prove it happened? Because we've had so many cases where someone lied to try and get money, or someone lied because they had a basic disagreement, or someone lied because
Yep.
this person cheated or broke up with them. So, how do we know? And then you have situations of people throwing these gas words, and like you said, it devalues it because now people think that, oh, a narcissist is just someone who's like really confident and bragging and boasting. No,
Right.
that's arrogance.
Yeah.
That's arrogance. But then they think, oh, this person like slapped my hand when I was 5 years old for touching the candy jar.
Yeah.
Now, if they like slapped your hand with a frying pan, that's different. But if they just like slapped your hand when you were 5 years old because you were touching the cookie jar, that's being disciplined. Just like, I mean, it might not have been the most quote unquote healthy way of disciplining your child, but it was
Sure.
discipline. There's a difference.
Right.
So people, and it gets on my nerves too, because we have a lot of people who go around saying things that they have no understanding of. And then it leaves when people like me, when I'm trying to come to these high schools and talk about these sorts of things, for legality reasons, I go in there and I word it differently. But I'm basically explaining like how they can improve their self-worth and confidence and all that. And then people see like the things I talk about in my post and my books and all that. And a lot of people have this assumption that, oh, this must have just been some guy who like, he heard one thing on TikTok and made ChatGPT write a book. No, I actually write about my life and I go into detail of here's how to step by step do this thing.
Right.
And then you look at it even on like a bigger scale on how people, you said this on that podcast too, where people, they ignore it. They ignore the fact that, okay, um, an analogy I thought of a couple months ago was, imagine if once every 47 seconds an iPhone exploded. You know how fast people would riot, and like there would be pitchforks around Apple's headquarters, and people would be like making posters and bans and writing laws about this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Now, once every 43 seconds, someone in the world killed themselves. And once every 17 minutes in America, someone does. If an iPhone exploded once every 17 minutes, Apple would get shut down immediately. Like
Immediately.
like there would be federal enforcers, you know, there would be programs at every single high school. There would be so many things.
Yep.
When it comes to stuff like this, people shy away from it because there's this stigma of, oh, these people are being emotional, or they're being dramatic, or they were this, or one thing that like really got on my nerves, but thankfully I've learned how to keep myself calm when this sort of stuff happens, is I was at a like conference and I was just there attending to learn from other people. And I had this one guy was sitting next to me who he was probably like 60s, 70s maybe. And we were just talking about like, oh, what brought us here? What are we here to learn? So I told him a bit about me. He told him a bit about himself. And he mentioned that like in a few weeks, he was going to like a suicide awareness walk because one of his friends like recently killed himself. And I was like, man, I'm sorry for your loss and stuff. And I kid you not, this guy says that he must have been like weak-minded because he didn't have like kids and a wife and stuff. Now, I just ended the conversation there. I said, well, I am sorry for your loss and I hope that the walk goes well. And I just walked off and went to a different spot because people have this notion
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, that person must have been weak-minded. When the reality is they got too tired of being too strong for
Yeah.
too long.
And it's a
And
generational thing too. It's
yeah,
when you have a generation like my father's, who he's in his 50s, and the gentleman that you talked to, who you said is in his 60s, it's a generational thing. When they hear the word suicide, they don't think about it the way that you and I look at it. They don't see it
yeah,
as something that needs awareness behind it. They look at it as, like you just mentioned, weak-minded. Yeah, it's men don't talk about their problems. We're all macho. We have to be masculine all the time and be the protector of the family. And I'm so heavy on this, man. I feel that we're more men talking about it and getting help for ourselves than not talking about it and putting on this facade for the world to see.
Yes. Because if you keep faking it, eventually the truth comes out. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is when we look at things like people who just, it seemed like out of nowhere they just snapped.
Yep.
No, they were always honest, and it was building underneath the surface. It's like when you are have like a pressure cooker and you don't let the steam out, eventually it just builds and builds and builds and builds until boom.
Yep.
And that's why it's so important that people not only talk about it like openly, and I'm not saying that everyone like go out here and start posting on Instagram and social media like I do. No, I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying at the bare minimum, talk to your family. Talk to your mom, dad, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, school counselor, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whoever. Talk to somebody because you'll quickly realize that when you talk about it, now someone at the bare minimum, they know to keep an eye on you.
Yeah.
They know, like, hey, I don't know how to help you, but let's go on Google and search up free mental health resources, free therapy support group, men support group, whatever. And then you're actually able to begin the process of healing and solving the problem before it gets to the point where it like takes you out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't recover from that.
Right. And I also to that point too, um, I feel that it's so hard for a lot of people to accept the reality that they're in. They don't want to acknowledge that they're in pain. They don't want to acknowledge that they need help. And when that conversation of getting help comes up, it's like, oh, I don't want to get help. That costs too much money. Or it becomes like a string of excuses, if you will.
Yeah.
And I recently dealt with somebody like that. And unfortunately, you can lead a horse to water all day.
Yeah.
You can't force somebody to drink or help themselves. And when it comes to suicide prevention, when it comes to, just the awareness of the conversation, like you said, the best thing we can do is keep these conversations going. But we also have to be careful on who we're talking to about those certain things. If you know a mom or a dad, like you and I have experienced, are narcissistic, abusive, whatever the case, then be cautious of what you tell them and be cautious of who you tell them
Oh
to.
yeah. No.
Um, just for the simple fact of people can weaponize your mental health, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's the reality of today's culture of people that will use things that are hurting you against you, regardless of how harmful
Oh
it
yeah.
is.
That's huge right there. Because especially people trying to weaponize that, you know, I've had many times in my life where people have like tried to label me as, oh, he's crazy, he's this, he's that, and all this other stuff. And the thing is this, you talk to people who, often you think you can trust certain people and then you find out you can't, which is really painful. But the best thing to do is talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Like, if someone's listening to this and you're in high school or college and you talk to like a guidance counselor or a school counselor, they legally cannot weaponize that against you.
Yeah.
Or if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, you might be thinking, oh, I don't want my partner to leave me and judge me. But at least now you know that they weren't good for you in the long term. Because if
Exactly.
someone isn't willing to, it's not to say that you expect them to be your therapist and solve the problem.
Right.
But if at the bare minimum, they won't Google how to help my boyfriend with, how to help my girlfriend with, free resources, because organizations like you mentioned, NAMI has a chapter in just about every single place in America,
Yep.
and they are free. And maybe you're like, oh, but like you said, the excuses people make. Well, I don't want to go to like a circle of people and we all stand up and say, I'm an addict, like Alcoholics Anonymous. No, that's not
Yeah.
how they do it.
Right.
They have Zoom meetings. You can you can literally get on a Zoom meeting and just talk, and you don't even have to have a real name. You don't even have to show your face. You can just be in the room and get the information and learn.
Right.
And with people not wanting to acknowledge that they're in pain, because I was there. There was plenty of time when I would say I'm fine, when it was blatantly obvious that I wasn't. It's like everyone gets to that point where they just have to. It happens for different people in different ways, but everyone gets to that point where they're just like, I'm tired of lying. I can't keep lying to myself. This is what it is. This is what I'm waking up to. This is my home environment. This is what's going on. And when that happens, now when you go into the places where people offer the help, you're willing to at least try it.
Right. Right. And for me, I was that pressure cooker. I was that I didn't let the steam out. I didn't have any outlet. I didn't take care of myself, and it blew out to my second attempt. And it's I don't talk about the attempts as like a badge of honor or anything. It's those type of parts of my story that I get uncomfortable talking about it sometimes, but at the same time, it's like you need to acknowledge things that you've done in your past to move forward.
Yep.
And, you know, um, with as much people as you help and going to the schools and, talking about what you talk about, I usually ask this question to all my guests, but just kind of rephrase it in some sort or another. What's a question you wish more people would ask you, and how would you answer it?
A question I wish more people would ask me, and how would I answer it? Hmm. I would probably have to say, hmm, I'm trying to think of a way to word it. It would probably be something along the lines of, how do I stop avoiding the things I don't want to acknowledge? Because even though when I go to schools, I don't, typically talk about mental health things simply for the fact that when you do it in a school, there's like legal things that are
Yeah,
involved.
right.
But when in just my own personal life and when I work with organizations such as NAMI and things like that, I talk about it very openly with them. But just in both cases, things such as how to stop avoiding the things I don't want to acknowledge. So it could be as simple as, how do I stop avoiding the fact that I don't want to admit I have this bad habit, like I'm overeating or I'm drinking or I'm, procrastinating or I'm playing too much video games? How do I just acknowledge, like, how do I stop running away from having to admit what I'm doing is hurting me? And I would answer it with, you just got to look in the mirror. And that means that not just literally looking in the mirror, but just write out your day. Write out, what did you do when you woke up, then what, and then what, and just look at it. And you're like, that's my life. That's what I did. And if I keep doing that, I'm going to keep getting what I'm getting. And if you want something different, you got to do something different.
Right.
And doing something different looks different for different people. It might be changing up, it might be changing your habits. It might be getting a gym routine. It might be getting a therapist. It might be talking to a guidance counselor. It might be going to the gym and working out because that's how you're going to handle your anger. It might be as simple as taking a 5-minute walk when you feel stressed. You just have to be honest with yourself. And once you're honest and you stop lying to yourself, you'll stop trying to fake it. And instead, you'll just be who you were meant to be, whatever that means to that person.
Right. So before we get to the quote to close out today's podcast, where can our listeners find you?
You guys can find me on Lawrence C. Empowers is all my social media pages. And anything related to podcast booking or speaking engagements, you can contact me at lawrence@lawrencecharris.com.
Got it. So before I read my quote, do you have any closing words you want to share with our listeners?
One of them would be that whenever you feel alone, go find people. Go have a conversation with someone. And it doesn't mean like you have this really deep conversation with them. You just, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, talk to somebody you trust about your day, about your life, about whatever you want to talk about. And even if just for a moment, it gives you some time to think about something that is more uplifting.
Absolutely. So today's quote comes from Eddie Hilsum. I hope I didn't butcher that name. Um, Sometimes the most important thing in a whole day is the rest we take between two breaths. Man,
Mm,
when I read that yesterday, it had me spinning my wheels quite a bit because I feel like we're always on the go, 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 right? We're never taking breaks for ourselves. We mentioned burnout, and I don't want to say we all take life for granted, but so many of us take life for granted. We don't pay attention to the small details in our daily lives. I make it a point to take these sticky notes once a day, write down something positive, and I put it in a box and do it until the end of the year. And those are the little things that I find in the day. I'm like, oh, today wasn't a completely shit day. I had a really, really good conversation with Lawrence. Or yesterday, I paid all my bills. That was a really big highlight because I got to pay my bills. I still have a roof over my head. Um, when we can take a breath and stop for a second before we take our next breath and be like, life is okay. Life is it's going, I don't have everything I want, but I have everything that I need right now. And
yeah.
when you work hard enough for something and when you manifest all the good things into your life and have these meaningful conversations like this one, I feel like sky's the limit, man. I think the world of your journey, and I couldn't be any more grateful to have met you and heard just a little bit of your story. And I really look forward to seeing your growth in this community, man, because you are definitely a bright light in it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
A quote, like as you were talking, I had a quote that came back to my head. It was actually from my old boss, Andy. I used to sell solar panels. And one thing he told me was any day when nothing tremendously bad happens is a good day. And it at the time it was just in the context of like, you're out selling solar panels. Sometimes people call the cops on you. Sometimes you don't make any sales. It was just saying if nothing like super bad happened, it's a good day.
yeah,
But over the years of me like reflecting on that quote, I started thinking about how there are times in our life when tremendously bad things do and will happen. But any day when nothing like severe happens, like nobody died, no house burnt down, you didn't go bankrupt, wife didn't take the kids, on any day where it's not like that, it's a pretty good day.
yeah,
It might not be fantastic, but you're like, I mean, I'm alive. I have a food, shelter, water. I'm not sleeping under a bridge. I am able to walk. I'm in good health. I'm not blind. It's a pretty good day.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more, man. Lawrence, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great conversation. I look forward to talking more in the future and definitely look forward to seeing what more you bring to the community, man. So thank you again.
Do I highly appreciate it.
And for my listeners, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Till next time, be gentle with yourselves and much love.